Welcome back to Dark Side Deep Dive. We all know that Spider-Man is getting another trilogy, Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU, and well, this is going to be about what we want to see from it. So, I I'm excited that he's getting another trilogy because it's going to be the first Spider-Man to go past three, and at this point, the trilogy is one story. It's like one long connected story, and with Tom Holland's, it's even bigger than that because it's the trilogy plus Infinity plus Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. So if anything, his is kind of really a six-movie arc.
Yeah.
But I like what they've done with him in the MCU now, and it's funny because after Far From Home, I wasn't loving it because I love Tom Holland still; he's a great Spider-Man. But after Far From Home, it really felt like he was way too dependent on Tony Stark for me. And this is something a lot of people have said before, but he felt very dependent on Tony Stark. But for me, it was more so it just made Peter look stupid. Like in Far From Home, he didn't seem like the Peter who's insanely smart, who built his own suits and built all this tech himself. He seemed like a Peter who was kind of just along for the ride and was given technology way too advanced for him.
Yeah.
That wasn't I didn't vibe with that very much. But looking back at you look at everything he's been through so far and how No Way Home ends with nobody remembering who he is, and this feels like this whole six movie arc is Tom Holland's MCU origin story as Spider Man. Like
Hmm.
this whole collective thing, almost the way No Way Home kind of resets him back to a square one, classic Spider Man. He's living in an apartment on his own. I mean, that's a bit different. He normally lives with Aunt May, but he, nobody knows his identity. He has to build his own suits. He has to figure everything out on his own. That feels like the just the classic, the true Spider Man. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I don't think they've really done that with any heroes in terms of like taking everything away from them, like establishing them in the MCU and then taking it all away. I Nothing comes to mind for me.
Yeah, because really everyone actually my first thought thinking about now, if you go by taking everything away, is Thor, because he did lose a lot going through Endgame, but
Yeah.
like not to the I mean Spider-Man quite literally has lost everything. Like not a single person even knows who Spider-Man or who Peter Parker is.
Hmm.
They know who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man was still involved in all the events of the MCU. They just don't know his identity now. I'm assuming they still have to explain that one. They still have to explain what the actual consequence of that final spell is for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And we see in Multiverse of Madness, it very clearly takes place after No Way Home. We see that obviously Spider-Man still exists. Everyone knows who Spider-Man is, so that'll be interesting. So kind of we're not really gonna create a trilogy right now. That's a lot of work. We're really just gonna outline, the things we definitely want to see in this next trilogy. And I was gonna get this one out of the way because this goes for me, this goes for you, and this probably goes for literally everyone right now. I want to see Miles Morales. And now, personally, I don't want it to be the Miles Morales that we've seen in Into the Spider Verse. If the Into the Spider Verse Miles Morales were to show up in something like Avengers Secret Wars somehow, and they bring in animated characters, which I think that would be kind of really cool, if they just had some scenes where you have the real characters and the animated characters just interact for I don't know, 5-10 minutes or something. I think that'd be sick. But I want the MCU to establish their own Miles Morales, who we know already exists in the MCU, and I want them to build him up as his own character in the MCU. I think that's really important, that the character is fully built into the MCU and he's not just showing up from somewhere else or some other universe. I just think that connects him deeper, really, to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So Miles Morales is just going to be something that everyone's going to say I would I would like it to also take more of the route of the PS4 Spider-Man, where he is kind of like, he's a main character in, let's say, Spider-Man 4. He's sort of another main character, and then gets his powers at some point in that Spider-Man 4. Spider-Man 5, he's has to be trained by Peter. Like, Peter eventually figures out by either walking past him or seeing that there's someone else with his powers, that he has to train this kid because he doesn't want this kid to get hurt like he did, and fall into the problems of revealing his identity like Peter had fallen into in No Way Home.
Yeah.
And then 6 is kind of when it switches over, and that's kind of the movie where they are fully working together as Spider-Man and Miles Morales. Obviously, Tom Holland Spider-Man is still going to be the main character, but this is where it flips to, by the end of that, it's kind of going to be handed to Miles Morales to continue this story and be the next main Spider-Man. Preferably without Tom Holland's Peter Parker dying, because that'd be way too similar to Iron Man. Or not super similar, but it'd be similar to Iron Man. And I would rather have him take more of a Parker Industries role following this, and kind of just like replacing Stark Industries with Parker Industries. That'd be just kind of a cool thing for them to do.
Yeah.
Dude, Tom Holland could play Peter Parker forever. So, and he said he would want to. So yeah, then we switched to Miles Morales, and I think just from that little bit of story, I mean, obviously there's going to be way more involved to it, but just that little bit of story of Peter training him, Peter's going to go very hard on him on, you can't reveal your identity to anyone, because he's going to just still have that trauma of losing his loved ones. Either they die or they don't remember him anymore from his really 6 movies we saw up to this point that we're recording this. And then Miles Morales in his own trilogy, because he's definitely going to get one. Miles Morales in his trilogy can really, really struggle with, he feels like he wants people to know who he is, but people can't know who he is, because if they do, they're going to get hurt.
Right.
Yeah, so Miles Morales just like...
Yeah, I think Miles Morales is by far like the biggest what we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, he's already in the MCU too. Like, they've literally had Aaron Davis, who's the Prowler in the comics, in Spider-Man Homecoming. And he said he has a nephew. Like, that's literally Miles Morales. And actually, like, you look at it now, with this time jump too, they have a perfect explanation for Miles' age. Because, like, this time jump did such a good thing for Marvel with introducing characters, because they essentially freed themselves up a full 5 years. So you could say that, like, in 2017, when Homecoming takes place, obviously, you could say that Miles is, 5 years old. It's 2017, he's 5 years old. And now 2023, you could say he's never got snapped, so now you could say he's 11 years old then. And so let's say 2025 is when the next Spider-Man movie were to take place. You could say that he's 13 then, and then that's when he gets his powers in the comics. He's 13. Or you could say he was always old enough. Like, he was, I don't know, 2017. You could say he was older. It's just like, you have a really good way to explain people's ages.
Yeah. So
that's the first thing. Check that off on this list. Miles Morales, everyone wants it to be done. I so want to see just a really cool live action Miles Morales suit, because just seeing like first iterations of suits on camera it's always just really cool. Like, seeing, like, just recently we had Jane Foster show up as the Mighty Thor, and seeing that Mighty Thor costume get translated into Thor: Love and Thunder was really cool, because they kept a little detail of her helmet had those almost like curly marks on it. So new suits are always cool. I love new suits.
Yeah.
So like, next thing on that list now, under Miles Morales, we're gonna have to get villains for the films, and so we each have 3 villains that we're thinking of, and we didn't tell each other just to see if any of them overlap. So I don't know do you have yours in an order for, like, what movie you want to see them in, or yours just like you just pick three?
No, mine is just in general.
Okay. Yeah, I only have an assignment for one of them for a movie, so I'll just leave that one as my third one. But so first one, I'll throw my first one out there. My first one I want to see is Scorpion.
Yeah, I had Scorpion as one of mine.
Yeah, I mean he's been set up at the end of Homecoming. He hasn't been done yet, obviously, and I think Spider-Man PS4 was such a fun game to play,
Yeah.
and I think they did a really really cool job with Scorpion in that and using his toxins to like disorient Spider-Man, and it gave him like kind of just visions or whatever, almost like a bit like Mysterio, but not in the same way.
Yeah, it was like psychosomatic rather than illusional.
Yeah, it wasn't like Spider-Man could see everything clearly and didn't know whether it was real or not. It was that Spider-Man was, you know, stumbling around and not in a great spot. I would just like to see Scorpion. I'd like to see him get brought into live action and what they would do with him. And Scorpion actually for a time is Venom in the comics. Now obviously they wouldn't connect that, but I think that's just, a cool thing that if we have, you know, we get Scorpion now, maybe you could give him just like reference that later on when we get the symbiote, get that somewhere in there. So Scorpion, yeah, he's set up. I feel like he has to. He's been on the Sinister Six quite a few times. I feel like he's one of those ones that has to be done. And also, I throw this for the villains as we're talking about them. I don't have them on my list. I don't know about you, but I don't have Green Goblin, Electro, or Green Goblin, Electro, Doc Ock, Sandman, or Lizard on my list because I mean, one, really, they've all been done,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I'm mostly focused.
anything that's already been done.
Yeah, I'm looking at new ones, but since we have versions of these now introduced into the MCU, even though they are, Andrews and Toby's villains, I don't think they're going to give Tom Holland his own versions of them, especially since Green Goblin is both a huge villain for Toby and Tom at this point, with him killing Tom's Aunt May as well. So, and he was able to cure Doc Ock. I think they kind of, killed two birds with one stone. They didn't have to recast the characters and end up with the comparison, and we got to see the villains we enjoy again.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a good job with those. So those aren't on my list, and as you just said, they're not in yours either. So we're good. So this one, I feel like you might have to. You say the second one, and I'll see if I have it on mine too.
My next one is also from Spider-Man PS4. It's Black Cat.
That is actually not one I had, but that would be really good.
Yeah, especially like I think it would be funny. I think she could like get introduced earlier in the trilogy, and sort of how you saw in the Spider-Man PS4. I think it was DLC actually, where she actually like gets better, sort of. But there's that whole thing where she's like, Peter, I have a kid and it's yours. And like they have a fling.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. I think seeing Tom Holland go through that would be pretty funny. I think that would make for a good movie.
I would love to see what route they take with having him react to her saying you have a kid. Would he just be like, whoa, whoa, whoa? Or would he just be like, oh shit, like this isn't good? Yeah, Black Cat would be sick. She's such a huge Spider-Man character, and Sony had been looking at giving her her own movie, but Sony, whatever. Anyway, I'd love to see Black Cat, and honestly, she definitely could. I don't think she could be the main villain of a movie because she's too involved with Spider-Man to like. at least in my opinion, serve as the main villain, and because really for the main villains you have to make them truly evil, and I feel like if she was truly that evil, she wouldn't be involved in Spider-Man. But
Yeah.
she could definitely be like side villain. Like movies don't have to. They can have one main villain and just kind of someone else there to cause the problems. So
Hmm.
yeah, Black Cat definitely in there. Actually, not one I had. Not the next one I was thinking of. I was
Do
thinking
tell.
of, yeah, yeah, coming from also this one is the main villain of Spider-Man PS4, but someone I think they could do a really good job with in the MCU is Mr. Negative.
Yeah. I was. He's probably like my fifth. Like my top three, and
Okay.
then I have a fourth, and then Mr. Negative would be my fifth.
Yeah, yeah. I was split on this one because my last one that I have in mind, which have reserved for the end of the next Spider-Man trilogy, so Spider-Man 6. That one won't change. But this one I was a bit split on whether or not I put Mr. Negative in, but I feel like if they do age up Peter a little bit in this and maybe say he's got his own startup company now with Parker Industries, Mr. Negative is more of a political ish figure. And so you could say that, Peter has to work with him with Parker Industries, and he runs Feast. I don't know if this is true in the comics. I know this is from Spider-Man PS4.
Yeah.
Mr. Negative runs Feast, and we saw Feast in Spider-Man No Way Home very briefly. That's where Aunt May had taken in Green Goblin when he first showed up.
Hmm.
So yeah, we saw Feast very briefly. So that's a way to kind of bring in Mr. Negative a little bit. I just think like if you give him the political aspect and where Spider-Man has to try to convince people that their favorite political figure at the moment is not a great guy, I'd like to see that one go down. And then we could get some real J. Jonah Jameson of Spider-Man's a menace. He's trying to
Hmm.
take down this really good guy again. That'd be fun. You could get some more of that pretty easily.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we both had Scorpion, Black Cat, Mr. Negative. So now I'll start the third one since I started the first one. This one is one I, for a reason, have specifically saved to Spider-Man 6. Crazy to say, but Spider-Man 6
Yeah.
is Hobgoblin.
Yep. Yep. I
Yeah.
had Hobgoblin.
It's, I mean,
You gotta.
it's Ned. Hobgoblin is Ned Leeds in the comics,
Hmm.
and the way I'm picturing it, this is one of the only other main story things I'm picturing is throughout this trilogy, you kind of build towards. They referenced it so clearly in No Way Home
Yeah.
when both Toby and Andrew's Peters say that their best friends tried to kill them, and Ned looks at Tom, or Ned looks at Tom. I'm gonna say Tom because you can't say Peter; they're all Peter.
Hmm.
Ned looks at Tom and he's like, I promise I won't try to kill you." If they had that come around, I think that would really be kind of the nail in the coffin for Tom Holland's Peter Parker deciding to not necessarily completely hang it up, but let Miles Morales take it on as being the main Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And specifically, it hurts to say, I would want Ned Leeds to die in Spider-Man 6, but not a redeemed die. Not like a Kylo Ren, I'm a good guy now and I'm going to die. I would like it to be he just is evil to the end, and Tom Holland desperately tried to get him to realize whatever the cause is. I saw something out there that the cause could be that, he gets really, really upset that he chose to take years of his life away from him by erasing his memory.
Hmm.
So, that could be part of the reason, but Tom Holland just tries to convince him that it's not worth it, and he can't convince him, and he dies for it. And Tom Holland's like, "I'm done. I even though I tried to fix everything by erasing my name from existence, it still had consequences. My friends still got hurt, and I just can't do this anymore. Miles, someone has to protect this city, but it can't be me anymore." I think that's just a really good way to kind of get Tom Holland to. He doesn't die, but he hangs it up.
Yeah, yeah. I could see him killing Hobgoblin at the end of six, and then like not because he wants to, but because like he has to save the city.
Well, I can't see. I'm not saying Spider-Man kills him. Tom does not
Hmm.
kill him. I
See,
like.
I feel like that would be a really good, like super emotional way to end it, where
That
he
would.
has to save the city, and the only way to do it is by killing Ned Hobgoblin, and
I
then like
would.
he just breaks down crying,
Yeah.
and then he's like, I can't do this anymore.
I would be fine with it being he indirectly kills him, but I feel like by having him kill Hobgoblin, it would back up a little bit of No Way Home, where he goes to kill Green Goblin and Tobey Maguire stops him.
Yeah,
Now,
gotcha.
the No Way Home one is a lot more selfish because he wants to kill him because he killed Aunt May
Hmm.
versus killing Hobgoblin to save everyone else in the city. But I would, yeah, it's just one of those Spider-Man things. He doesn't want to kill people. Obviously, he had the scene in Endgame. He's like activate instant kill, but they're mindless aliens, and obviously, people you can argue, oh well, those aliens they're still sentient, whatever. They're not.
Yeah,
It's not the same equation. They're not people. They're not humans, and it's a lot more impactful when it's another person and when it's your best friend. But yeah, no, it would be really good if the entire city is going to go down and he has to kill someone who was his best friend because his best
yeah.
friend has lost his mind over Peter and over what he's done.
Like Ned, don't make me do this kind of thing.
Yeah,
Please, like
yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah, Hobgoblin has to show up.
Mm-hmm.
That obviously they don't have to do it this exact way. I would love for them to do it because it gives them a good reason to sideline Tom Holland Spider-Man for Miles Morales, but still keep Tom Holland involved. But yeah, Hobgoblin's got to be in there somewhere. It's too good for them to not do it.
Yeah.
The other one I will say, the one that I was debating between Mr. Negative and was Chameleon, because
Mm-hmm.
Chameleon is a very early Spider-Man villain who some people thought might have been in No Way Home, but he didn't end up being in No Way Home.
Um,
Chameleon's like Craven's half brother or something, I believe.
I honestly don't know much about Chameleon.
You can do a lot with that though. So he can disguise himself as any person pretty much.
Hmm.
So you can
Hence the name.
yeah. So Chameleon is Craven the Hunter's half brother. You could do a lot with a villain who can be anyone. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's very easy to say, very easy to think of. Like if he can be anyone, you know. So yeah, Chameleon was up there. Obviously, I mean, Craven has been up there since we were going to get more Spider-Man films, and as someone who really loves Craven as a Spider-Man villain, I've probably said this before. No Way Home was almost a Craven film. No Way Home actually started off with Craven the Hunter as the villain until Marvel fully decided they had wanted to go with the multiverse route
Mm-hmm.
and realized, and kind of brought that into Spider-Man and realized it'd be a perfect time to bring in Andrew and Toby. So, look, I'm totally not upset that they brought in Andrew and Toby,
Not at all.
but I would love to see Craven as a Spider-Man villain. But now, obviously, that is 100,000% not going to happen because we have the Craven the Hunter movie happening from Sony very soon, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Very soon. It's supposed to come out early next year, so I could be wrong about that, but I think it was early next year.
My next one is one that I'm not necessarily like itching to see, but I think it's pretty likely that it could happen, because he's been introduced to the MCU. It's Kingpin. I think we're bound to see Kingpin at some point.
I think it's a waste to not put Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin with Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin Feige has said recently that Daredevil and Spider-Man are going to be spearheading the street level superheroes going into the future, with them having announced Daredevil Born Again. And so think I think it would be a waste of time, and I think Marvel knows they would be wasting time if they didn't give us something with Spider-Man and Daredevil teaming up together in it to take down Kingpin for something. And I think it would be really interesting for that to kind of lead into one of the Spider-Man films, because you could again, going off Spider-Man PS4, thinking as I'm saying this, you could have Daredevil come to Spider-Man and be like, I need your help. We have to get rid of this guy. Like, I'm done having this guy constantly show up in my life, constantly ruin my life, constantly ruin this city. He needs to be taken down, and he needs to be taken down for good. And once you take that down, there is the power vacuum that we see in Spider-Man PS4, and then someone shows up to fill it. And maybe we get, someone with less superpowers and more of just, someone like Tombstone. Tombstone is, again, also Spider-Man PS4, but he's really just Tombstone. A gangster.
And,
exactly.
like, Tombstone, Hammerhead, Kingpin, like, I don't know, I kind of have them all in, like, the same boat, where they're just, like, big and tough.
Yeah, the big tough, the gang runners, pretty much.
Yeah. So I think you can only have one of them, and it's going to be Kingpin. So.
I think you can't. I think you can have one at a time, and I think the only way you can do more than one and do it well is by doing they get rid of Kingpin and then there's a power vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that would make them different enough that it could fill into then a Spider-Man film where there's now a crime war across the city trying to fill the Kingpin's power vacuum, and that's where he's training Miles Morales as well, or something like that. That would be the middle film or something. But yeah, I think they know, especially with what Kevin Feige literally said with them heading the street level heroes, they know that it's something they have to do. They know it's something that fans want to see. So it's going to happen. It's got to happen. That and like Spider-Man and Deadpool are two of the biggest crossovers people just want to see from having it happen in the comics, and how fun those interactions would be between the characters. So those are all. I think those would happen.
I think a Deadpool Tombstone fight would be hilarious.
I think Deadpool versus anyone, if you give Ryan Reynolds the right lines, could be hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Deadpool 3 because that's getting made. We all know it's getting made. I don't know if they announced that as part of the Phase 6 slate. That'd be pretty cool if they did. But I think something like that is going to sit a bit separate, almost in the same way that they wouldn't announce the next Spider-Man film themselves. Because, funny enough, Sony actually doesn't have the contract signed with Tom Holland to do another trilogy, but they've said it's coming. Marvel said it's coming. The two highest grossing Sony films are Spider-Man No Way Home and Spider-Man Far From Home, although actually I think Top Gun Maverick is a Sony film, and that might have taken them down.
Interesting.
Let's look. I'm looking it up right now. Highest grossing Sony films. I feel like I heard that took it down. Oh no, it's not a Sony film. Okay. It's Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man Far From Home, then Skyfall.
Oh wow.
Then Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. How did that make that much money?
Yeah,
what?
That's
dude.
My first thought. I'm like, really?
Dude, it's Spider-Man No Way Home at 1.8 billion, Far From Home at 1.1 billion, 1.13, Skyfall at 1.11, and then Jumanji at 961 million.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Wow. One thing I just realized, and I'm not sure if and how they'll make this happen, but given that we are entering we are in the multiverse saga, I'm not sure how they would bring the multiverse into the new trilogy, if they do.
I think that this all is part of the multiverse saga, but I don't think every story has to do with the overall multiverse. Like, because we had the Infinity Saga, but you look at something like Black Panther has nothing to do with the story of the Infinity Stones.
True.
Or Thor Ragnarok has nothing to do with the story of the Infinity Stones until literally the end credits, where you see Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
So like, not every film or every show now in there is going to be continuing the overarching story of the multiverse saga with Kang, but these characters are all going to be part of all of this at the end during Secret Wars, because it is Secret Wars, it's huge, so they would all be a part of it. And I think once we get to past this to phases 7, 8, and 9, I think it's going to split up even more than that. I think we could get an overarching villain like Doctor Doom, and then at the same time get something more mystical, because we have so many characters going on. We get the Doctor Strange side and the Mystic side, and that whole story going through at the same time as something more street level is going through. Because I think it's going to we have so many stories that can be done, and it's going to be a lot harder to bring all of these stories to the same point every you look at phases 4 through 6, it's 5-6 years long total. Every 5 years it's going to be really hard to bring together 30 stories,
right,
and try to create one massive story, or using one massive comic book story, because there are a lot of big comic book stories, but there are a lot of smaller comic book stories that people still want to see done.
Mm-hmm.
People want to see Midnight Suns show up. People want to see Spider-Man, Daredevil taking on Kingpin. So I think it would be good for them going into phases 7, 8, and 9 to step back from the saga structure and do more of a split up. Each character or each set of characters follows a story, kind of dividing into your street heroes, your magic heroes, your space heroes. We get a space story with the Celestials, and then we get a magic story with, I don't know, maybe they bring in someone like Morgan Le Fay, or I guess they kind of turned Sylvie into Marvel's Enchantress, or like that, the MCU Enchantress, sort of.
Yeah,
because like Sylvie is her, whatever, sort of, but just more magic characters.
I'll be honest, I totally forgot about the Eternals until you said Celestials. I was like, oh yeah, that whole
Marvel has trademarked a whole bunch of things.
Scene. Both post-credit scenes.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna see something more from Eternal, because I'm sorry, you don't cast Harry Styles for a post-credit scene.
Yeah,
it's Harry Styles. You don't cast a man who's going to generate that much money for you and bring in an entire new set of fans for no reason. That's kind of what I would like to see for the next trilogy, and seeing how it may be involved with other characters, because really the only thing I need to see Spider-Man be with, I need to see him be with Daredevil. Like, that one's one that I have to see happen. I mean, obviously we've already technically seen it. We have already seen him speaking to Charlie Cox. Funny name. We have already seen him speaking to...
Boo George in the comments.
Yo.
Everybody boo George in the comments.
Yo. We've already seen Charlie Cox talking to Tom Holland. So we've already seen Daredevil and Spider-Man interact. That's it. That's what he was talking about. That's what he was talking about. They're leading the street level heroes. That's all they're going to say to each other. I just want to see them take down Kingpin. That would be sick. You brought that up, and now I really want to see that. I just want to see like the way the two of them would just Civil War fight with Kingpin in the middle. Like if you remember Cap, Winter Soldier, Iron Man, just Daredevil, Spider-Man with Kingpin in the middle, just beating on him. Just because they're so done with this shit in the city. Mm-hmm. Oh, that would be so cool. That'd be so cool. Okay, well, never mind about... Honestly, never mind. I'm sorry, Hobgoblin, you don't need to be Spider-Man 6. Spider-Man 6, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Daredevil, all working together to take down Kingpin.
No, you see, I've got 4. Okay, we said we weren't going to play in the trilogy, but now I've got 4 is Spider-Man and Daredevil versus Kingpin. 5 is the power vacuum, and you could do something with that. And then Hobgoblin comes in at 6. Because, say, Hobgoblin, maybe Ned sees that Spider-Man took down Fisk and created the power vacuum, the city went to shit, and then, like...
He hates Spider-Man,
for making that happen, because, like, maybe his grandma was...
But actually, I'm... Realistically looking at this, depending on when they announce Spider-Man 4 to be, Spider-Man 4 could give us a symbiote saga. A very quick symbiote. It could be the symbiote Spider-Man movie. Because one of the other things they have to do, they have all of the characters set up. Sorry for those who can see my watch tan line. My watch is currently somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, never to be found again. Wasn't really planning on fixing this tan line because I wasn't expecting my watch to disappear. But anyway, they have the characters set up. They have the Fantastic Four, and specifically Reed Richards, to be there to recreate the scene of Spider-Man getting the black symbiote suit in the original Secret Wars from the 80s. That is where he gets the symbiote suit. He goes in because his suit is super battle damaged from all this multiversal fighting. He needs a new suit, and Reed Richards is like, yeah, I have a suit fabricator over there. And he's Spider-Man, and he doesn't know what that actually is, and he sees this little black ball, and he's like, oh, maybe this is it? Because he's in a room full of things he doesn't understand, and he touches it, and he gets a new black suit, and he's like, oh, yeah, cool, this was it. So you've got the characters showing up. Fantastic Four is coming. So, yeah, if Spider-Man 4 comes after Secret Wars, Spider-Man 4 could be we could get Venom. We could get an MCU Venom.
And then you know who they could bring in, since they just connected those stories?
Shut up. No. Don't. No.
Morbin time.
No. Okay. I'm so sorry to everyone listening.
Let's go.
I think.
Let's go. Just let that sink in. Just let that marinade.
Morbius is a great MCU character. Stop. Okay,
He's a great Marvel character.
Sony, stop making movies except for Madam Web at this point, because Madam Webcast goes hard. Madam Webcast goes so hard for no reason.
Yeah, that's a hard sheesh for the Madam Webcast.
Chris, you sound like someone's dad trying to stay relevant when you said that. Like
that's
like
great. Kids.
Okay, well, before this becomes more devolves even more into stupidity. That's all we have to say, mainly, about what we want from the next Spider-Man trilogy. We've got a few cool ideas. I think Spider-Man 6, the only one that I definitely want and would be upset if it didn't happen is Hobgoblin for Spider-Man 6. But I'm so excited for more Spider-Man movies. He's my favorite character. He always will be. He's the first comic book I ever read. So, they did a great job with the first story with those 6 films. I'm really excited to see what they do with the second one. But, we've got a couple of years until then. So,
yeah,
we've got a lot more podcasts to make before those even come out. But, with all of that said, thank you to everyone who's listening. Go ahead, stay updated. Follow our Instagram at darkside.deepdive. Follow our Twitter at dsdeepdive. And we'll see you all back here next Tuesday when we spin our wheel of content ideas and decide what we talk about next.
yeah.
Because we've got quite a few things on there and not enough time to talk about them because busy summer working and doing things.
It's been a busy summer. Make sure you go like, comment, and subscribe. Really helps out the channel a lot. And smash that notification button. Turn those
notifications on. It's literally free for you to do, and it makes us feel really good because numbers going up make happy. That sounded really depressing. All right. Like, comment, subscribe, follow our Instagram, follow our Twitter, do all of that. Stay, let your life revolve around Darkside Deep Dive as it should, as ours does, because I wake up in the morning, I listen to Darkside Deep Dive.